and welcome to Something Social. My name is Chris Gonzalez. I'm going to be your host for this evening. I'm joined for this episode here with Mr. Jacob Catalano. He is co-founder and CEO of Peak, and he's a social application that's really working to drive discoverability for users on Snapchat. It's gotten a lot of hype lately. Jacob's been featured in Adweek, 17, MTV, most recently Business Insider. He's done some really cool things with what he's working on over at Peak, and we wanted to bring him in on the show to really talk about Snapchat, what directions he sees things going, and talk more about the app. Jacob, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it. We know you've been working on Peak really for heavily in the last 7 months. It's been a roller coaster for you. You've gotten an incredible amount of momentum in the marketplace recently. But before we kind of get back into that, for people that aren't super familiar in your background and kind of where you started, I love to kind of dive in on kind of what Peak is, how you kind of came around, and to really developing the idea and like really what's the problem that you're going after with Snapchat? Because I know you say that there's a lot of stuff with this discovery feed getting cluttered and a lot of stuff like that really Peak aims to eliminate. And I think there's some awesome stuff you're working on.
Yeah. So right now we are a Snapchat discovery app. We're the first of its kind, really, and we help people find and follow some of the most interesting people on Snapchat. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're really excited by it. We've been getting some good initial traction. We've been in the market for 12 days right now. So we just recently launched, but we've been working on it for a while. It all started with just a little website that was very simple, that helped people discover some of the cool people on Snapchat. The idea being that it was tough to find usernames. You didn't know who's good on Snapchat. So I made a quick little website that got some traction, about 20,000 users. And from there, we built a kind of an MVP of the app. We knew this was going to be best as a mobile product. And that app, it was very crude, but we learned a lot of good lessons from it. We got about 1,000 downloads and a lot of really good users to talk to and get their feedback. So we took that feedback and we just really made this app, we're calling it Peak now, and people are really liking it. We've got really good early feedback. And it's just a really, really easy way to find and follow the best people on Snapchat. And that's what we're doing right now. But we have a big vision for what we want to do in the future and where we're kind of going.
Yeah, definitely. And, I really want to hit on that idea of, this idea of kind of where do you see Snapchat in context? I know you talk like a lot about how it is really a two-way communication platform. It was kind of originally designed, and it's really kind of evolved into something else. And as a result of that evolution, we see some hangbacks on kind of the UX and UI and interaction and kind of how you kind of before the show, we were kind of talking about some of the contrast for some really use cases and uses that you were seeing Snapchat being used for in regards to a lot of this sort of one-on-one communication and how that's had implications on what's really happened now with just being so much information kind of going on in that Discover feed. I mean, how do we kind of get there?
Yeah, so for the longest time, Snapchat was a chat app. It still is. It's really good if you want to send a message to one-to-one or one-to-many. In often cases, could be 5 or 6 if it was in the chat, which is, as Evan Spiegel describes, it's the left side of the screen. And that's one-to-one or one-to-many. But we also have the Stories product, which was, when it first launched, was the same idea. In this case, it wasn't one-to-one, but it was one-to-many. So all of your friends on Snapchat would see these stories that you would make, and it'd be seen by 50, 100, maybe 150 of your closest friends, but not really many more. And that's what the app is designed for. And we haven't seen much changes to that screen, the Stories screen, at all. We've only had one big change that happened about 2 months ago when they put the Discover and Live Stories kind of at the top. But other than that, there's been no other changes to that. Meanwhile, the market and how people have been using that product has evolved quite a bit. So no longer are people just using it to consume content of their friends. Now, because Snapchat is such a large platform with 125 million daily active users, the people that have large followings elsewhere across the internet, whether it's Kylie Jenner, Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, these people can now convert their followings from Instagram or whatever to what we typically see is about 10 to 15% of their largest following elsewhere to Snapchat. So if you're Justin Bieber with 40 million people on Instagram following you, then you're looking at 4 million people looking at your Snapchat. That's a lot. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's what Kylie Jenner has. Kylie Jenner has about 4.5 million people opening her Snapchat, and that was earlier in the summer. And Snapchat said she's the biggest person on the platform.
Wow.
So that is crazy. And the product hasn't evolved much. That part, the stories part, that really hasn't made for a great experience when you're dealing with this fundamentally different kind of content. When it's a very passive experience. You're not communicating. You're not chatting with the person in any sort of way. You're just consuming the content. It's very much a one-way relationship. Much more similar to what it would be like on YouTube. Actually, even less. On YouTube, you can engage in comments and other things like that. Snapchat, it's purely just consuming it. There's nowhere to share it outside of Snapchat. It's there for 24 hours, then it's gone. So that's why we kind of came along and we kind of shook that up. We're looking at those sort of people that kind of break the way Snapchat was designed to be used, that have millions of followers on Snapchat, and we create a better platform for the users and the regular consumers of this content to consume it. Now they can share it. They can kind of watch it whenever they want. They don't have to be confined to 24 hours. A big thing that we're hearing is now people, if they want to add someone on Snapchat, because there's a high barrier, you don't know what their username is, you don't really know if their content's good. With Peak, you can go through all of their Snapchat stories, so you can see, okay, this is their last like 10 stories. I can look at them and be like, oh, okay, this person is cool. They are interesting. I'm gonna type in their name into Snapchat. I'm gonna add them, and I'm gonna consume their content. And it's a very high barrier to do that. But it's worth it if you know what you're getting yourself into. But in Snapchat right now, you can't really see that sort of stuff. You don't know if their content's good or what's going on. So oftentimes people just don't add them.
And one of the things I found really interesting is, like, in your Medium articles, that you really had touched on this idea of a parasocial relationship, and that Snapchat's like a platform in social that really stands out and really builds that type of one-to-one relationship, or really one-sided relationship, but still, because of the authentic nature of the content that's on the platform, really is a core driver for that, and how it's a lot more real. Can you kind of take us through, I guess, some of that kind of a little bit more in depth as to, like, what do you mean by that, and really kind of what type of the users expect when they're using that, and kind of get our audience an idea of what do the users expect, and so the expectations when people are using Snapchat, especially millennials, and how that relationship evolves with especially people like Kylie. Like, I know you're saying, hey, me and Kylie, it feels like me and Kylie snap all the time, but it's really you checking out Kylie's Snapchat to see what she's doing right before she's going to bed, for instance. So how does that really play into that relationship?
Yeah, so I think Snapchat is it's the most authentic platform out there for these creators to kind of share who they are. There's very little that gets in the way. There's not really filter. There's some filters, but it's very, very raw. It's just shooting from the hip. This is what I'm doing. Whatever. And you just kind of get it. There's a very unfiltered view of what that person's life is like. And on top of that, because it's the content is deleted, you see a higher frequency of use. So Kylie Jenner, she might Instagram maybe a few times a week, but on Snapchat, she's making several snaps a day. So you get a very, very coherent view of what's really going on in her life, and you look forward to it every day. And now it's like Kylie Jenner's your friend, because it sounds weird if you haven't experienced it, but if you start following someone you don't know on Snapchat and they're consistently making content, you'll feel like you know them pretty well. And if you were to walk on the street, like, oh yeah, like, we're best friends. Meanwhile, they've got no idea who you are. And that's kind of the essence of what this parasocial relationship is. It's where the one party, they've got no idea who the other person consuming their content really is, but the consumer feels like they've got some sort of intimate relationship with them. They're good friends. And Snapchat, I think, really, really makes that happen quite easily. Just given the type of platform it is and the type of content that's produced there. So it's interesting. It's very interesting how that the whole dynamic works.
Do you think that's why brands like Taco Bell have done so well, because they've seen them really deploy influencers? Like, I know there's like two regular influencers that really make appearances on a lot of Taco Bell Snapchat in the industry. And I know we talk about Snapchats from an advertising standpoint, because that's really the world we play in over at Gnack, is just this idea of advertising on Snapchat. I mean, have you seen brands do really well that are able to have these types of influencers so people can develop and have an opportunity to make that type of connection and really personify that channel? I mean, you think that that's been a core contributor for success for those types of brands that are deploying influencers that are a little bit more brand side? Even though they know people know they're getting paid, it still feels more organic and real, and they're able to get that connection. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's necessarily that you need an influencer. What you do need is you need to put the effort in to consistently make high quality content. Snapchat is a very, very unique platform. There's nothing else like it. You can't take someone that just because they're good on Instagram doesn't mean they're going to be good on Snapchat. You really need to find someone that understands the platform and allow them to do their thing so they can communicate to the Snapchat audience effectively. Because it's so new and because it's quickly evolving, oftentimes what you're finding is an influencer is the quickest way to do that. But there are examples of companies that are able to effectively have a Snapchat presence without having to go out and bring on influencers to promote and to take over their Snapchat for them. I think that probably the best example of that would be Apple Music. They have a great Snapchat account, and I've got no idea who runs it. I think it's just their internal team. They've got really great artwork, and they put a lot of work into it. They make good stories a few times a week, and they do a really great job. But I'd imagine they're able to promote it very heavily. So the ROI is there for them because it's very clear that they've got however many hundreds of thousands of people watching them. So it makes sense. But other times, if you're just starting to grow and you need some other ways to you're kind of testing it out, you're kind of guaranteed a pretty high quality result if you just go to the influencer and be like, hey, can you take this over? So if you're kind of dabbling and trying to get a taste for it, getting the influencer probably makes more sense if you're not ready to make that investment to someone that's going to be that is their job. Because I imagine people at Apple Music, it's someone's job to do Snapchat because it is a full-time job. It's very, very labor intensive. Always going to be on top of it.
Do you think this idea that the snaps are deleting in 24 hours is really creating this barrier of entry and kind of making it a little scary for some brands to get on this, because there is that expectation and requirement that you have to put the time in and really make a commitment when you're ready to go on to Snapchat? Or do you feel like less frequent of posting, you'll still kind of see similar results, maybe if you're not posting every single day? Or what are your thoughts on those barriers of entry to really get into Snapchat? I mean, either from an individual influencer that wants to grow an audience or a brand that wants to grow an audience.
Yeah, it's really tough because with Snapchat, you can spend hours creating something and it's deleted the next day. Now, if you have that audience, it makes more sense because, okay, I'm going to put all this effort into making this, but I know however many people are going to see it. But oftentimes you don't have that luxury. You're just starting out and you get a few thousand people maybe viewing your Snap stories. And the only way to grow is to consistently make high quality content. So, it's kind of, unless you should really have a strategy going into it and know what you're getting yourself into, because it's a long game with Snapchat. You need to put that time, energy, and effort into it, and then you'll succeed. But I think in the early days, it's very difficult to get that ROI in 2 seconds. You can't really build a Snapchat following overnight unless you're a brand like Sprite. You're able to print QR codes on your cans and just get everyone to kind of add you. Unless that happens, it's difficult. So you should really have a clear strategy of what you're doing and understand what it's going to take to get to a destination. But the opportunity is definitely there because there's really not that many brands that are doing that great on Snapchat, or not even that many native creators that are really thriving on Snapchat. I can probably name all of them. It's like both brands and influencers that have natively grown big on Snapchat, definitely under 100, maybe 50. There's really not that many.
That's a great point because I was checking out usepeak.com. I was checking out some of the features that you guys were really included. And part of that is this idea of archiving and driving discovery. I mean, do you think that that's one of the key advantages that your platform is really allowing influencers and brands to do is to archive all the hard work and labor they had put in to create this information? And then also, I mean, drive discovery and expose people to new content categories and things that they may not have known about and may not have known that Snapchatters were producing that type of content simply because there is a gap there of visibility and you kind of almost have to be in the know about who's who and what's going on just simply because there is no discover feed or
Oh yeah,
the
totally.
feed to discover new users on Snapchat itself.
Yeah, like that's one of our big value propositions. Is now that users can come to our platform, and they can experience all this new type of content that they had no idea existed. So a lot of the time, we're getting people to go on the art category of the app, and there's some really really cool art that's being created on Snapchat. But these people, there's like it's very difficult for them to grow. So it's for the most part, the first time these people are coming across this content, they're like, oh wow, this is really really cool. Uh, they think it's like they think it's awesome, and a lot of the time, these brands and these influencers, they're saving their stuff anyways because they want to grow and they know how much effort it took to make this content. So they're not letting it just delete. So they're saving it, they're posting it to YouTube, they're posting it to Facebook. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff to kind of get it to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough. It's very, very difficult. But
Mm-hmm.
we think Peak is a good platform for that. Right now, we only have just under 300 creators on the platform. And we're trying to grow that every single day. But there's really just not that many high quality creators out there making good
Mm-hmm.
Snapchat content. So,
Wow.
it's tough. It's tough.
What a great opportunity. What's been the biggest, best piece of feedback you've got on your recent updates with Peak? I know you just launched, I mean, a couple of days, so you're just seeing this stuff come in, but what's been the biggest piece of feedback you're most excited about?
Most excited about, like, there's a few things that we know we need to get done and improve upon. So, like, the main thing that we know we got to get done right now is search. So, if you if you go in the search part of the app, we don't have search by first name implemented. So that's kind of an issue because a lot of the time these people do have weird Snapchat usernames, like Justin Bieber. His Snapchat username is Rick the Sizzler. Like, if you didn't know that, how could you search that?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it was just kind of like the way our back end was. Didn't make it exactly straightforward, but we're fixing that, and we're that in the next update you'll be able to search by first name, so that when you want to see Justin Bieber, you can just type in Justin Bieber, and then Rick the Sizzler Snapchat stories will come up. So that was like, I didn't realize how big of a thing that would have been. But that is the number one piece of feedback I've gotten so far. And luckily for us, it's an easy fix. It's an easy add. So we're doing that, and then some other stuff is just really, really natural that we expected, like profiles. A lot of the times, people are coming across these artists and they're just seeing their Snapchat username, and they've got no way to figure out, look at their Twitter or their Instagram and get more of an understanding of who they are. And all along, we've intended to make profiles. It's just, you got to launch sometime. So we decided to launch without profiles, but we're definitely going to be adding those. The users really want that. So things like that we'll be adding. And we're still in the process of just talking to our users, finding where they're getting the most value out of the app, how they're using it, how they're not using it, and we're gonna keep going from there.
Yeah, and I think one of the most fun thing is this idea that you and Snapchat are really working and together, and it seems like in a really positive relationship, because I've known people that have downloaded Peak and didn't necessarily weren't on Snapchat and using it as a Snapchat user, and now all of a sudden they're a Snapchat user and they're able to follow people on their Snapchat they wouldn't even known before, but they kind of started off from this Peak user standpoint. So I mean, I think it's really cool that it's a very symbiotic relationship in that you're really kind of pipelining new growth and new discovery from people that haven't necessarily been exposed to the platform.
Oh yeah, totally. I think that was a concern from some people when we first launched, is that they thought we were going to be taking away time that users would otherwise be spending on Snapchat, that they're now going to be spending it on Peak. But we're not seeing that to be the case at all. We're really finding that people are going on Peak. They're finding really interesting people that they that they really really like, and then they're discovering their username and they're adding them on Snapchat, and now they consume their Snapchat. And Snapchat definitely has strengths that are better than what Peak can do in areas. So if like my cousin, she's like 14. and she's a really big fan of Ashley Benson. And she didn't realize she's like one of the stars on Pretty Little Liars. And she didn't realize she had Snapchat. She used Peak, found out she did, and then she added her because she's a big fan. That's awesome. But like maybe she's like a little bit less of a fan of Shay Mitchell, who's also a star in Pretty Little Liars, and she wants to see her content, but just not up to the minute. So now she can go on Peak. All of her content still periodically every few days. She can just come on and check out what they're doing, and use it like that. So yeah, we're really seeing that we're just growing the pie. We're spending more time on Snapchat because of Peak, and they're also they're spending a lot of time on Peak as well.
Wow. And we could chat forever about Snapchat. It seems like we got about 3 minutes left in the show. I want to do a quick fire question here because I know we have a lot of brand and advertisers that are tuning into our show. I mean, being so, being considered an industry expert in Snapchat, living and breathing the platform every day, what is the top 3 pieces of advice you can give advertisers, specifically and brands, advice on getting Snapchat and using that platform effectively and engaging with the audience that's on there?
So like one would be definitely just have a strategy. Know what your goals are going to be with Snapchat. It's not something that I would suggest signing up for on a whim and just be like, oh, we're going to do Snapchat. No, you should probably have a very clear, concise strategy. We're doing Snapchat. This is the result we're trying to drive. And we're going to be using it for the XYZ purpose. I think that's number one. Just have a very, very clear idea of why you're using it and what expectations you have. Then I'd also say is understand that Snapchat, it's a long process, it's a long game. You're not going to build your audience overnight, and it's going to require consistent effort to succeed and do well. And then lastly, you got to make good content, and you have to figure out a way to make that happen, whether that's working with influencers, hiring someone in-house. I don't know. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you need to find a way to make really, really high quality content that is authentic to the platform. You can't just repost your Instagram. You can't just be saying that you've got deals going on and using Snapchat to push that out. That doesn't work. You need to be making high quality content that people are going to want to consume. And then if you do that, then you got a good chance of succeeding. Because it's not very crowded. There's not that many brands on Snapchat right now.
Wow. Well, you guys heard it here first from Jacob Catalano. It has been a pleasure having you on the show, Jacob. Thanks again for coming and hanging out with us on Something Social. Again, Jacob is co-founder and CEO of Peak. You can go learn more about his project at usepeak.com as well. Check him out on Medium. He's got some great posts, and we'll sure be seeing more from him in the future. All
right. Thank you. You can go to the App Store and just search Peak as well, and you can download the app.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye, Jacob. Thank you.
Yeah.